Can't see anybody anymore. Oh, I'm mute. Hello? Hello? Can you hear me? Yeah, that's better, right? Long live microphones. Hi. So, before we start, I have a really quick question. On this, there's basically two talks I can give. I prepared two because, well, sort of prepared two. Okay, so I can do a nuclear throne postmortem, and I'll talk about how we started the game, how it went from idea to a final product. The other talk I can do is a lot more about questions you have, and could be more fun. So I'm going to ask you, who wants me to do the nuclear throne talk, exactly as is in the schedule? And who want me to do the crazy, weird idea talk that I think is going to be really fun? We can do both? All right. Yeah, that's actually true. We can do both. Okay, let's do the crazy idea. Give me 1 second. Okay. There you go. We're going to do both. This is going to be great. How much time do I have?
20 minutes for one, 21%.
Okay. Yep. Perfect. We're going to mix these. Hi. My name is Rami Ismail. I'm one half of a Dutch independent studio named Vlambeer. Just real quick, who here wants me to do an introduction of who I am? Real quick. I see one person, so thanks to you, we're going to do a 5-minute introduction. It's going to be awesome. So welcome. You all know this is DEF CON. My name is Rami Ismail. I'm one half Dutch independent studio of Vlambeer. I do business, I do programming, I do marketing, I do production. I drink a lot of Coca-Cola. It's hard to find pictures of me without Coca-Cola. And this is the other guy I started the studio with. His name is JW. JW is our designer. He doodles in booklets and prototypes our ideas. He's one of the best game maker users I have ever met. Since we started in 2010, we made quite a few games. We're best known for Super Crate Box, Luftrausers, Ridiculous Fishing, Nuclear Throne, Serious Sam the Random Encounter, Gun Gods, and a bunch of other games. We started back in 2010. And the story started when both me and JW decided to go to a university to learn game design. And I'd been making games since I was 6, and JW had been making games since he was 13. So we'd been making games for a while. I'd actually worked on commercial games at that point. But you know, we decided that we wanted to do this seriously, so we went to a game design school. Now, me and JW did not like each other. I'm a programmer. I'm a very logical person. I like making commercial games because I like, you know, paying rent and eating food. JW is very artistic. He would make 300 games a year, and 298 of them will be shit. But 2 of them will be good. So he thought I was a suit, right? I was a business guy. I was just scared about the money. I didn't care about the games. And I thought he was an obnoxious hipster because he was just making shit and not saying it's art. So we didn't like each other. But there was one thing we liked less than each other, and it was our school. So we dropped out. Bad idea. But for us, we had immediate success. We ate noodles for a year and a half. These were really cheap, so that was good. And then, because we didn't have any money, we decided to make a game, because it's the only thing we were good at. And the game we ended up making was a game about fishing with machine guns. This is called Radical Fishing, and it was a Flash game, and it earned us our first 10,000 euros. Those 10,000 euros for the Flash sponsorship led us to have enough money to take this prototype, which was called Crates from Hell, and turn it into Super Crate Box, which was an Independent Games Festival nominated game, won many awards, and suddenly instead of eating ramen noodles, we were getting flown to San Francisco to go to a fancy award ceremony with fancy food. And that was really nice, especially if you've been eating noodles for a long time. So, you know, suddenly people were paying attention, so we made a game about hip-hop and gangster rap on Venus, where you have to shoot the god of guns. It all made sense to us for some reason. I'm not sure how that happened. It had a really cool soundtrack. And then people started asking us to do talks Like they thought we knew what we were doing, which, that was funny, because we don't. So people started asking us to do talks, and then this company from the US, this publisher, Devolver Digital, they came to us, and they wanted us to make a Serious Sam game. And I don't know, if you've played Serious Sam, it's a very fast shooting game. It's very action-y. It's this amazing game. And I loved that when I was 14, right? And now this company comes to us, and they asked us, can you do a Serious Sam game? But the thing is, me and JW, we really like our independence. So they came to us with a big bag of money, and they said, make a Serious Sam game. And we were like, these people they just want a reskin of Super Crate Box, right? And we've got our integrity. We're not going to just reskin our award-winning game with a brand because they pay us for it. So we wanted to say no. But 14-year-old me in the back of my head was like, no, you can't say no, you have to say yes. So after a while, we decided, we came up with a brilliant plan. What we were going to do is we were going to come up with the worst idea that we could think of, and then we're going to pitch that to them. And then they're going to say no. So then we tried, and 14-year-old me can sleep, knowing that I didn't say no to a Serious Sam game. But also we wouldn't have to work for them. So we sent them the idea of this turn-based RPG. Because Serious Sam is a really fast action game about explosions and yelling enemies. So we were like, we're going to do a really slow turn-based game. And they were like, yeah, do it. So then we had to make Serious Sam RPG. It turned out pretty okay. It still has a lot of enemies and bullets, so that's good. Then we started going to events. This is the first time we had our own t-shirts. I'm wearing one of our own t-shirts now. But that was awesome. Like, the first time you can wear a t-shirt with your own logo on it. That's a pretty good moment. We went to PAX. This was the first PAX we ever went to. And Penny Arcade Expo is one of the largest consumer events in the world. So it was really nice having our game there and having our t-shirts there. Then we started working on this game called Ridiculous Fishing. Remember that fishing game about machine guns we made very early on to earn our first money? We thought, how about we make an iOS version of that? So we got this really cool team together, a programmer from New York, artist from Chicago, me and JW, and then a musician from Finland. And we said, we're going to make the best iOS game ever. And we started on that. And then a company in San Francisco thought the same thing, and they actually cloned the game and released it before we could. So they made a lot of money. And that didn't go very well for us. So we got angry, and we went to the New York Times. This is actually the New York Times, which they wrote an article about the whole thing, which was awesome. Then we actually finished the game. We finished Ridiculous Fishing, even though it was cloned. And Ridiculous Fishing ended up winning the iOS Game of the Year award. It was the best game on iOS in 2013. And recently, we won an award for the second best iOS game ever made, which that's pretty awesome. We started working on a new game, Nuclear Throne, which was what this conversation was originally going to be about. But I had a ridiculous idea, right? So here's the idea. I give a lot of talks, and I talk about a lot of things. One of the difficult things is to figure out what the audience needs to hear, what they want to hear, like figure out what is important to you. And I have to say, even though I love it here, and I talk to a bunch of developers from here, never really had like the proper time to talk to you about what questions you really have. So my talk is going to be called Fill in a Title During the Talk. And these are the slides. And there's absolutely nothing in here. The way this is going to work is I'm going to ask you to fill in the slides. And then I'm going to make a talk about it here on the spot. Is that a deal? Yeah. Let's try this. So, somebody tell me something that you want to hear me talk about. A question you have. A thing you don't know about. You can just yell at me, that's fine too, but yeah, go. You don't need a mic, I can hear you.
Thank you very much. I'm making games in GameMaker for certain years, and I know that you're one of the biggest GameMaker developers.
Yeah.
Do you still love GameMaker after all this?
So let's say video game creation tool set.
Yes.
Like the tools you make games with. Choosing a tool set. Okay. Slide 1. Slide 2. Somebody yell something. I don't need the microphone. Just give me something. What? My first girl. That's a terrible story. Let's not talk about that. Okay, go. Nuclear throne postmortem. Nuclear throne postmortem. Let's do it. Okay? Number 3. How to get? Featuring. How to get featured. Working with platforms. Okay?
3 biggest mistakes.
Inspiration. Yep. All right, slide 5. Come on.
3 biggest mistakes.
Publishing on consoles. All right, 6.
So you're spending a lot of time on Twitter, calling, yeah, and what are you actually doing now? Like coding or something on the game?
That's a good question for Q&A. I'm a programmer, so I code most of the game, yeah. Somebody else? Ooh, scoping? Scoping. Let's say scoping. Okay? Slide 7. 3 more, come on.
Early access experience.
What?
Early access experience.
Early access. That'll be in the
sorry.
postmortem. It'll be fine. Okay, 7. Come on. What? My favorite tools? Noodles. Duck noodles. They're great. The chicken ones taste like plastic. They're awful. Don't eat them.
How to keep going when morale in your team is very low?
How to?
How to keep going, keep doing your game when morale in your team drops?
Discipline and, yeah, okay, discipline and motivation. Yep. Okay, slide 8. Working remotely. That was clever, by the way. Well done. Okay, slide 9. Ooh, favorite tricks. Oh, I like that. I mean, that is my favorite trick. That's true. Slide 10, final slide. Come on. What? How to sell a game. Let's put that with the console one. Yeah, remote teams. We have that one? My biggest, yeah, I'll put that on the favorite tricks.
What about making 1 game per week?
Oh, yeah. Actually, that's under tricks as well. Come on, we're running out of time. Come on, yell something. That's inspiration. Sorry? Community. Okay, cool. Awesome. What's the name of the stock? How do we call the stock? DEFCON Megamix? That's a very original name, Rami. Well done. Hi. Hi. My name is Rami Ismail. I'm one half Dutch independent studio of Vlambeer. I do the business and marketing and programming. JW is the designer. We made a few games. These are the ones we made. We started games because we hated school. Noodles are great. We made a fishing game. Super Crate Box was first ugly, and then it was great. And then we made a shooting game, and then we did talks, and then Serious Sam, and then we made T-shirts, and then we made a fishing game, and then it got cloned, and then we made a fishing game, and then it got released and it won awards. Then we made Nuclear Throne. Hi, my name is Rami Ismail, and this is the DEFCON Mega Mix. Wow, that went fast. Now I have to drink water, I think. This is water, right? Yeah. You never know what's under a stage. Things get weird. Oh, God. All right. So choosing a tool set. So one of the first things you're going to do whenever you start working on a project is you're going to have to consider what you're going to make the project in, right? And this sounds like a very easy thing. And in most cases, you will go with the tool that you're most familiar with. And in most cases, that is actually the right answer. If you're very good at Construct, make your game in Construct. If you're great at Game Maker, make your game in Game Maker. If you are good at Unreal, make your game in Unreal. Unity, Unity. If you want to program your own engine, holy shit. Like, you could do that. I'm not going to say no, right? But the tool set that is best for you is the one you're most comfortable with. Now, there are exceptions, and those are actually very important. All of our games were released in GameMaker except for 2. And the 2 games that weren't released in GameMaker were Luftrausers and Ridiculous Fishing. And the reason that Luftrausers was not done in GameMaker is because that was our first console game. And it was back in the day of the PlayStation 3, and GameMaker actually did not have an export to PlayStation 3. So when we started on the project, one of the first things we did is see what platforms would we potentially like to publish on. And one of those was PlayStation 3. So we went to GameMaker, to Yo-Yo Games, the creators of GameMaker, and we asked them, could you make a PlayStation 3 export? And they said, yes, we can do that, but it will take months. We were like, we don't have months, we have a game, and it needs to be done soon. They were like, well, we'll start working on it, but it won't be done before your game is done. So we hired 2 programmers that helped me out porting the game to an entirely separate C++ framework that we created ourselves. And it was based on Haxi, actually. And it turned out great. It ended up working on PlayStation. It ended up running smoothly on that. But what was important there is that even though sometimes the tools you are comfortable with will work for the basic idea of your game, one of the first considerations, if you are making a commercial game, is what platform will I be releasing on? For the Ridiculous Fishing, actually, the reason that was not made in GameMaker is really simple. The person we hired to help with porting the game, with creating the game on iOS, actually never used GameMaker and absolutely hated GameMaker. So we decided to use open frameworks for that one because one of our team members, and one of the team members that will be working in code the most, actually preferred not working in GameMaker. You don't always have to. That's a good phone ringtone. Never heard that before. Anyway, so even though you might be comfortable with a certain tool, you have to always reconsider per project. The one important thing that I want you to take away from this slide is that everything is a decision, right? Even though it might seem like an obvious thing, we've always used this engine, so why not use this engine? If you make your decisions like that, where things are the way they are because they are the way they are, you're going to make mistakes. So reevaluate your engine at the start of each project. Reevaluate the frameworks you're going to use, reevaluate what you're going to be building the game in. And if a certain functionality does not exist in your engine, please file a report with your engine creators, with the people that created the engine. Just ask them. Because there was not going to be a PlayStation 3 export for GameMaker until we asked. And then they went like, yeah, we can do that. That'd be a month of work, 2 months of work maybe. And they did it, right? So if there's something that you really need out of an engine that doesn't exist, just put in a request. For the bigger engines, it'll take more effort, but it can never hurt. Nuclear Throne was actually interesting because that was made in GameMaker Studio. We started in GameMaker 7. And then halfway through the project, we switched engine, which is a horrible thing to do. Don't do that. And then we did it again, and we switched to Studio, which is a horrible thing to do. Don't do it twice in one project. But it actually ended up being the right choice. So sometimes it could actually be better to just dispose of all the work you did, just get rid of all the work you did, and start in a new engine and start anew. Sometimes that can be the better decision. So in the case of Nuclear Throne, that was actually really interesting because Nuclear Throne was a project that started as a game jam. It started back in 2013 as part of the Mojam Humble Game Jam, which was a charity jam. And Notch, the creator of Minecraft, asked us if we wanted to be part of this cool charity thing. And the rules were simple. We got 48 hours to make a game. We had to live stream all of it. We could not turn off the camera. And then people could buy the games while the stream was going. So Nuclear Throne was actually not called Nuclear Throne back then. It was called Wasteland Kings, and it was made in 48 hours. And there's a very specific reason it was made in 48 hours. Because in our experience, if our team works on a game and it takes 2 days to make, it will take almost 2 years to polish to the standards that we are happy with. And we care about polish. We care about the game being good and smooth, and we want to make sure that the game feels right. So Wasteland Kings, Nuclear Throne later on, I'm going to call it Nuclear Throne from now on. Nuclear Throne was never going to be a commercial project. We were working on Luftrausers on the time, and that was the game we were interested in. It was fun, and had explosions, and Wasteland Kings was the silly jam game we just did in the middle. And then we found that whenever we got bored of Luftrausers, we opened the Nuclear Throne project and just added a weapon. Or like, that's also a new ringtone. Cool. So we added weapons, we added enemies, we added worlds, we added all sorts of things. And this wasn't our main project. It was just something that we were doing on the side. And at some point, me and JW, my co-founder, we looked at each other and went like, why are we working on this? And like, if we are working on this much, why don't we make it a commercial project? So we switched. We switched Nuclear Throne to a commercial project. Then we started working on it. And the first thing we did is we got a team. And the way we select our teams is actually really simple. They are people whose work we admire, and then we send them an email. It's that simple. People always ask me, how do you get your team? It's like, we have a cool idea. We send them a prototype of that idea, and we go, we need art. Do you want to do art? And then they go like, well, what's the deal? And then you talk about the deal. In our case, the way the project is built is very simple. Each of our collaborators gets a basic choice. We have a little bit of money up front. And what we tell them is you can choose. You can choose for full revenue share, and then they get X% of the project, right? They get a certain percentage of whatever the game makes. Or they can get an amount of money up front. And if they take the amount of money up front for every like $1,000 they take, the amount of revenue share they get gets lower. So they can choose to fully invest in the project and just trust us that this is going to be good. And then they're effectively shareholders. It is now also their revenue that's at stake. Or they can say, I'm in a financially bad spot, or I don't want to be this connected to the project, and they just take one big upfront payment, and then they do the job, right? The main thing is we work with people who have proven themselves. And we usually work with people that we've worked with before. And the way we found those people, all of those people, is very simple. It's game jams. We pay attention to what happens in game jams. And then every now and then we will see somebody who made music, or who did sound effects, or who did art, where we look at them and go like, I think I would like to work with that person. One of the people we worked with on the Nuclear Throne team was actually a student who sent a piece of fan art that was so good that we hired him. He was 17 at the time. We had to wait a few months until he was old enough that we could legally hire him. So we got our team together, and then we started working on the game. And we decided that since Mojam, the original creation of Nuclear Throne, was live streamed, that we would keep live streaming. So every Tuesday and every Thursday, we promised we're going to live stream. And every Saturday, we're going to release an update. We did that for 99 weeks. Tuesday live stream, Thursday live stream, Saturday update. Let me tell you, that is a horrible idea. Don't do that. Just don't. Here's the things. The benefits were great, right? We became great friends with our community. They loved it. They loved the updates. They loved the schedule. They loved the live streams. They really got to talk to us. The live streams were interactive. People were giving their feedback. And then every week they would have new content, new stuff, new weapons, new enemies, new levels, new music, new everything. And it was a very tight community. It was very nice. And in fact, I would say that the Nuclear Throne community, because of the work we did, because of how much time we spend on live streaming and communicating with them, is probably one of the best communities that a video game could wish for. These are people that cared, but also that understood game development because they watched us actually make the game. So for those 99 weeks, we actually launched the game in early access. So it was available on Steam. The way we got on early access is we had an existing Steam title, so we just had to send an email. In the case of Steam, the proper way of getting on Steam nowadays is through Greenlight. As soon as you go through Greenlight, you will get a contact at Valve, and that contact at Valve can help you set up early access if you ask for it, right? That's the way it works. So we did early access, and early access was interesting. It was terrifying. It was not super fun. And releasing a game every week that could, piss off everybody that has bought it because now it suddenly doesn't work anymore is really scary. We got lucky that the community was super supportive. But early access takes a lot of effort. If you're thinking of doing early access, please calculate for every release you're going to do, calculate like 2 weeks of development time. Because getting a game polished to the point where you can release an update and not have it suck is really hard. The best things of Nuclear Throne actually happened in the middle. We noticed Twitch streamers started playing our game, so we would go to their streams and then just hang out and chat and talk to them. That was really cool. A lot of Twitch streamers loved that. And it actually got really big on Twitch. A lot of people ended up playing Nuclear Throne. We went to Twitch with that, and we said, can we make it so that you can buy the game on Twitch? So if you subscribe to our channel, you actually get a free copy of the game. This channel subscription is $12.99, exactly like the price of the game. And we actually noticed that the first major sales spike we ever had was when Northalion, a popular content creator, made a video of the game. It was the biggest sales spike we had up to that point. And for the rest of the project, it ended up spiking mostly at the moments where live streams were playing it. Now, there was one big problem, because 99 weeks in, everybody that was going to buy Nuclear Throne had heard of Nuclear Throne, and they had bought Nuclear Throne. Before we launched the game, it had sold hundreds of thousands of copies. So how are we going to get more? So we came up with a ridiculous idea. We said we're going to launch on PlayStation. We're going to launch on PlayStation, and then that will generate news, and that will help us push the full release of the game. So instead of releasing one SKU, instead of releasing one product, which is Nuclear Throne on PC, Mac, and Linux, we ended up having to release 3. Nuclear Throne PC, Mac, and Linux, Nuclear Throne PlayStation 4, and Nuclear Throne PlayStation Vita. This was also a mistake, because it turns out that if you're a team of 2 to 6 people, launching at 3 SKUs at the same time is hard. How many of you here make console games? Don't you love certification? I think that means no. So yeah, that actually ended up being a total pain. And working with the big platforms is actually a really interesting thing when you think about it. These are these big, giant corporations that have a store. And the way they fill the store is with these big games that are going to earn them a lot of money. And then between those games, they need to sell something, so they sell our shit. That sounds very cynical, but that's kind of the way it works, right? The reason big platforms sell independent games is because it gives them something to sell. Now, a lot of people that work at the big platforms actually genuinely care about indie games. It's not as if they all just look at us as bags of money, but I can guarantee you their bosses do, right? So here's working with platforms. Which one would you like to hear? PlayStation or Xbox or Nintendo? PlayStation? Yeah? PlayStation. Did I hear somebody say Nintendo? Apple. We'll get to that too. So let's do PlayStation and Apple because they're fun, different stories. So let's start with Apple. So Apple is mobile, iPhone, iPad. God, I don't even know the word for that anymore. Anyway, the thing with Apple is really simple. They earn more money selling the iPads than they earn selling your games. So they don't give a shit unless your game makes their device look good. That's literally the only reason they will care about your game. So what are the things you can do to make your game look better to them? Game Center. They love Game Center. Why do they love Game Center? Because it's theirs, right? If the iPad has a specific functionality, use it. They have a gyroscope. You could use that. The iPad Pro has this giant screen. Use it. What are the unique selling points that Apple has over their competitors that you can use? What are their unique products? What is interesting about the iPhone? If you want to know how you sell a game to Apple, if you want to know how you get featured, you know what you do? You listen to the WWDC keynote. And everything they mention in their keynotes, you put that in your game. You make it fit. It's not as if a leaderboard doesn't fit in every game. You can put a leaderboard in every game. Even if it's a leaderboard for how many hours somebody has played, if there's no score in your game, right? how many times they booted up the game. And then you make something pretty, something beautiful, something nice, something interesting, something that makes the iPhone or iPad stand out as the gaming device. And then, the most important thing, you submit your game more than 3 weeks before release. You submit it to them more than 3 weeks before release, and then what you do is, you go to their website and you find their contact email. I'm not going to give that to you because if you don't want to do the effort of finding that, you should probably do more effort. So you email them and you tell them about the game, you submit it, and you include the app ID, the number of the game, and you include why you think it's special, and then nothing happens. And there's two options. Option one is they never email you back, in which case you're not getting featured, and that was kind of that. If your game launched on an Apple's device and it does not have noticeable buzz or a feature, it's probably not going to do well. Then what you do is you move on to the next project. Option two is they email you back. And Apple does this really fun thing because most major platforms actually cannot legally promise you anything. They can't make a promise. It's not how their businesses work. So what you will get from Apple is this really cute email that says, we are considering you for a feature. You might get featured. And then they ask you for a bunch of assets. And they will send that email about 12 to 24 hours before you have to deliver those assets. If you don't send those assets within those 12 to 24 hours, you don't get featured. Luckily, a list of those assets exists on their website. So if you're making an iOS game and you haven't found those assets, go find those assets. Find the requirements. Keep to them exactly. Don't mix up a single pixel. If it says 1,279 pixels wide, they don't mean 1,300 pixels wide. They don't mean 1,278 pixels wide. They mean exactly what they say. And you get that right. And then if you get that right, they might feature you. They also might not. Now, the interesting thing about Apple is there's not really anybody you can talk to. They don't really have people. Like, sure, every territory has like a person in charge of that territory, but that's about it. So Apple's kind of a black box. That's what we call it. There's no way to look into it. The only thing that you see is what comes out of it. Now, PlayStation, very different story. The thing with PlayStation is, think of PlayStation as this company that has been publishing games for what? Decades? Their systems are not built for indies. Their systems are built for AAAs. Which means that one of the biggest things you're going to have to learn to deal with if you want to release on PlayStation is filling out forms. It's awesome. Even funnier, a lot of those forms are actually different per territory. So if you want to release in Sony Europe, you have to fill out some different stuff than Sony America. Even funnier, one of the big things about console development is that there's something called certification. And certification is effectively how they check whether your game adheres to their rules. And let me tell you, there's a lot of rules. You ever wondered why a console game always starts with a press X to start game? It's in the rules. You know why it's in the rules? So that the console knows which controller you're holding. That's it. That's why that screen is there. You want to know another fun one? You can't use the outer 10% of the screen for anything related to HUD. You know why not? Because screens have different ratios. So if somebody's playing on a 4:3 screen, they might not be able to see anything in the outer 10%. And if they're playing on a 16:9, they won't be able to see the upper and lower 10%. You can actually avoid that rule if you allow one of those sliders that you see in a lot of console games where you can adjust for how big your screen is. Those are rules. You break those rules, you don't get certified, you don't launch your game. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of those rules, and you will mess them up. Nobody goes through certification the first time in one go. It's just not how that works. So what you do is you submit your game, you go through the process, you fill out a shit ton of paperwork, and then look at your game, you get a message back with there's 12 bugs, fix them. Also, we stopped testing after the 12th one because we found too many, so fuck it. Then you fix those 12 bugs, and then you resubmit. If you want to resubmit, you have to select a slot. A slot is a date on which they start testing. Usually all of them are taken, so you have to wait for like 3 weeks until a slot is available, and then you submit again. Everything about console development is inefficient because it's not built for us. It's built for a company who says, Oh, look, 400 forms of paperwork. Let's hire 12 interns. We can't do that, right? So working with platforms is effectively adjusting yourself to whatever they're doing, but whatever you do, don't think it's going to be easy. It's going to be a pain, and you're going to hate it. Sorry. On the other side, it can lead to a lot of good things. Our launch on PlayStation actually did really propel our news, and it did really get people interested again in the release of Nuclear Throne. Now, I've been thinking about the bridge to the next slide and how I'm going to transition between those, but there's no way to go from working with platforms to inspiration. It's just, I don't know how to, like, whoever came up with inspirations after working with platforms, like, shit. Why did you do that? So inspiration. Inspiration is really simple. Everybody's different. So me and JW actually did this fun exercise where we tried to figure out how our inspiration works. And it's really simple. We still haven't figured it out, but the basic version is we got really good at recognizing when a thought is interesting. So what we did is we started looking at like how the other person reacted when we got excited about something. When JW is excited about an idea, he will drop everything, grab his computer, and start prototyping it. That's when JW is excited. When I'm excited about something, I sit back and then just like throw ideas, right? Like I would just talk about ideas, things that I think are interesting, like what is the angle, what is the story, what is the interesting thing here that we can dig at, right? Finding those differences between us was actually really good for us. Because now when we have an idea, we can tell whether we are interested before we start talking to the other person. Inspiration is this odd notion that you can come up with something original. And that's not entirely how it works. Original is a weird word. But the way it works is, have you heard the saying, everything is a remix? You've heard the saying, right? Everything is a remix. They don't mean everything is two different ideas that you mash together and then it's something new. And what they mean is everything can be remixed. So you want to make a good video game, you know what you go do? Go skydive. Why? Because presumably you haven't done that. Who here has skydived? Nobody? You should do it. It's actually, yeah, it's great. It's fun. It learns you about falling. You don't spend a lot of time in your life falling, I hope. But like that feeling, that's unlike anything. It's actually in Lufthausers. The way the airplane falls, like that sense of falling, it's an interesting feeling. So inspiration comes from anywhere. If you read a book, you're going to be a better creator. You're going to find more inspiration. If you watch a movie, better inspiration. Play a video game, more inspiration. Go for a walk, better inspiration. Study architecture, better inspiration. Go skydive, better inspiration. Get in a fist fight, better inspiration, right? Like anything you do in life that you pay attention to will make you a better creator. And very often, you know what the best way to get inspiration is? Just walk away for a bit. Just stop caring. Because honestly, the best ideas don't come where you're like actively digging for them. The best ideas, they just kind of happen while you're in the shower or, you know, like brushing your hair or eating breakfast and looking at the cereal in the bowl and being like, huh, I should make a game about fishing with machine guns, right? So just go live life. If you're a developer, it's very easy to get stuck behind the computer. And you know what you get when you get stuck behind the computer? You get games like other games. Because the only place you're getting your inspiration from is from what you're already seeing on the screen. Go out, go outside, go elsewhere, do something else. Wait, isn't this like... Now this inspiration is even worse. Like, talk about working with a platform, talk about inspiration, talk about working with a platform. Anyway, publishing on consoles is fucked up. Great. So, scoping. Scoping is a really hard one. So when I mentioned before, when we make a game, if it takes 2 days to prototype a full version of the game, we assume it takes 2 years to polish it. And that's actually consistent. We have found that in all our projects. You just take the amount of days, and that's the amount of years. You spend a day and a half prototyping, it will take you a year and a half to finish it. And like, that sounds absurd, but it's kind of true. If you make a game and it's an action-based game, or like a game with a really small nugget, you know, something really small, not like a big story like Firewatch, but like a very small, interesting game mechanic. That's just a mechanic, right? The content still has to happen. You still have to figure out how the feel is. You still have to figure out how it plays, what feelings people get, how they figure out how to play the game. You still have to do level design. You still have to do all these things. And then, when you're done, you have to get rid of all the horrible shit you made and only keep the good stuff. And then, you need to add more stuff based on that good stuff and then cut all the horrible shit again and then keep doing that. The basic idea for scoping is really simple. A designer by the name of Jesse came up with it, and he came up with the idea of the loop. So think of the loop as a circle. And the way the circle works is simple. You have an idea, you prototype it, you implement it, and then you evaluate it, and that's a full loop. Okay? So you have an idea, you build a version of it that works, and then you implement it. That's loop 1. Now you have a bit of information, so you can do a new loop based on what you have, and that loop is slightly bigger, and we call that loop 2. And they do that again, and now it's loop 3, and then eventually it's loop 4. And then as you keep going, the loops get bigger and bigger. You know how you make the best game? Go through the loop as often as you can. Have an idea, test it, check whether it works. If it doesn't, cut it. If it does, build a newer circle that's bigger. Right? And that's it. Go through the loop as often as you can. Sometimes the idea is we should polish this. It's a very small loop. But going through it still counts. Or we should polish all of the weapons. Bigger loop, but it still counts. Go through the loop as often as you can. Have an idea, implement it, test it. If you do that, you can actually scope pretty well. You can just look at the time you have and go like, okay, let's go through the loop like 6, 7 more times. We have like 3 months. So assuming each loop takes about a week, that's 6 weeks. Then lesson number 2, whatever your programmer tells you the amount of time is you need for something, they are wrong. Programmers are fucking horrible schedulers. I'm a programmer, I don't believe myself. When I write my own schedule, and I go like, oh, that'll take 2 weeks, I add like 6 weeks to it, just to be sure. And like sometimes I think this will take 6 weeks, and it takes like 12 seconds. I'm like, oh, found it, fixed, awesome. So keep in mind that game development is weird. A lot of shit that we're doing, we don't know how to control. You can't schedule it. You still have to do it because you have a schedule and a budget. So whatever time you think you need, add 20% to it. If you're budgeting time, whatever time you have, remove 20% from it. If you're the producer on the team, please tell your team that there's 2 weeks less than they actually have. Because you know what game developers are really good at? Delivering 2 weeks after deadline. So just tell them the deadline is 2 weeks earlier. And that also ties into your team. A lot of people here make games because they want to, right? Like, I'm going to assume that if you're in this room, you make games because you want to, because if you don't want to, why are you in this industry? It's a horrible place to be. Like, the pay is bad, the hours are long, it's thankless, people get upset if you change something in your game. Like, you could be an architect and earn more money, or you could work at IBM and earn more money. If you're in this room, I'm going to assume you just love video games. So, being motivated is really simple. You just like what you do, right? Now the thing is, making games is actually really exhausting, and sometimes it's not actually very fun. People get demotivated. Now, there's a few things about motivation that you really need to know. The first thing about motivation is that it will go away. You will lose your motivation. There will be points where you absolutely hate everything about what you are doing right now, and that is not a bad feeling. Everybody goes through that. I go through that, you will go through that. There will be moments where you wake up and you look at what you have to do today and you go like, and you just close your computer and you do something else. That is fine. What is not fine is if you're not recognizing it or if you're not communicating with your team. Now, The substitute for motivation, oh God, this is going to go really fast. Substitute for motivation is discipline. I just got the 1 minute sign. Substitute for motivation is discipline. And discipline is just sit the fuck down, make the fucking video game, shut the fuck up. Right? That's it. That's how it works. Like, you started on this project, you committed to this project, make this project. That doesn't mean work yourself to death. It doesn't mean work all night. It doesn't mean keep working until you can't go anymore. You know what the other part of discipline is that's really important? You get to walk away from the computer at some point. And you go to bed and you fucking sleep. You know why? Because if you don't, you will fall and you will fail. And if you fall and fail, nobody's going to finish your game. You're the one that has to finish your game, so take care of yourself. If you want to stay motivated, take breaks. Walk away, do something else. There's nothing that works better for your motivation than to just walk away and then come back. And sometimes you come back and you go like, I don't want to work on this game anymore. And you know what you do at that point? You get rid of the project if you still can, and then for the next time you start on a project, you learn to fucking not commit to a game until you're sure you want to make it. Because that's where it went wrong. You started on a game that you didn't want to finish. You know how you figure out whether you should make a game? It's not the game you want to play. If you're making a game because you want to play it, you're messing up. You know what game you should make? The game you want to make. Because that's your job. Your job is not playing. You're the only person in the world that cannot play your game. You know why not? Because you know everything about it. You're the only person that's just not going to have fun. Because you're just going to see the bugs. You're going to see where it's broken. You're going to see where you messed up. So don't make the game you want to play, make the game you want to make. If there happens to be a game you want to play, awesome. If that's not, make the game you want to make. Search for that game. God, I have like minus 20 seconds. This is great. Working with a team remotely, basically have good communication standards. So because we had a weekly update, we actually had a really good schedule. Every week we had to talk to each other. We had a Slack. Slack is phenomenal. We had a bug tracker. Bug trackers are great. We had a source repository on Git, Bitbucket, which was really important to us as well. The biggest thing we learned is we communicated with our team over phone or in real life, at least at the start of the project, and we just sat them down and talked for 3.5 hours with them about what the game is and what our ideas are, what the feelings are, and we call it the essence statement. The essence statement is effectively a one-sentence thing of what is important to your game to you. And it's not a pitch, okay? Your pitch is what you do to sell the game. Your essence statement is what you care about. So Ridiculous Fishing is again about fishing with machine guns. The essence statement is we want to make a game with an infinite positive feedback loop. So every time you play the game, it's positive. So you throw the hook into the water, you go down, the further down into the water you go, the more fish you dodge, the more fish you can catch on your way back up. The more fish you catch on your way back up, the more fish you fling into the air. The more fish you fling into the air, the more fish you can shoot. The more fish you shoot, the more money that you earn. The more money you earn, the better the tools are so you can get deeper and get deeper beyond how deep you were, get more fish on the way back up, fling more fish into the air, shoot more fish, earn more money, buy more things. So that was the thesis. That was the idea. The essence statement wasn't making a game about fishing with machine guns. The essence statement is, can we make a game that always makes you feel good? That always makes you feel like you have progress. If you have an essence statement, your team will be able to figure out which way you're going. And they'll be able to communicate better because they know in which direction to look. If you don't have an essence statement, when this talk is over, go to your team and go talk to what you think about what you think you're making, because you will find you're disagreeing. I do this exercise with I have 5 minutes, right? I do this exercise with students, which is really simple. I tell them, I give them 20 minutes. It's class like half the size of this, and I give them 20 minutes, and they can ask me any question they want. And then after the session is over, after the 20 minutes are over, they get 3 days to make the game that I told them about. At the end of the 3 days, they get scored. If they made the game that I wanted them to make, they pass. If they don't make the game I wanted them to make, they fail. So they ask me questions. They go, Rami, what kind of game is it? And I'm like, it's a platformer. They're like, okay, what do you do? I'm like, you run to the exit. They're like, what else can you do? I'm like, you can jump. They're like, are there enemies? Yes, there's enemies. They just walk to the left. They're like, how do you beat them? Well, you jump on them. They're like, oh, are there power-ups? I'm like, yeah, there's power-ups. Like, how do you get them? Well, there's these bricks, and if you hit them from below, power-up comes out, and then you can grab them. What do the power-ups do? Well, one makes you taller. And if you get hit, you shrink again. And one makes you tall and makes you shoot. Like, okay. So what's at the end of the level? There's a flag and a castle. And then they make the game. And which game do they make? Super Mario Bros., right? Like, we all know Super Mario Bros. I fill all of them. You know why I fill all of them? I want Mario 64. We all agreed that it was Mario Bros., right? Nobody here thought, like, Rami's talking about Mario 64. We were in complete agreement. We never had a moment where we didn't agree. Somehow we still were talking about different things. Communication is hard, don't forget that. If you're working remotely with a team, the most important thing you can do is communicate clearly. If you're talking with your artist, draw a doodle. You're talking to your musician, hum it. Like, just hum it. Just literally hum the song. It's embarrassing, but do it. You want to talk to your sound effects guy, in our case, Jonas. You want to talk to your sound effects person. I want like a louder explosion, but I want like a rumble at the end. So, I do that. I call him and I go like, no, I need more. He's like, oh, okay. And he sense that, right? Like, communicate with people in the language they speak. If you talk to a programmer, tell them what the behavior is you want, what the behavior is what you expect, what it's not doing, why it's not doing it. You talk to a musician, hum. You talk to a sound person, make the sound. You talk to a designer, show a prototype. Communicate in their language. If you do that, working remotely is actually really easy because it's the same as working together. The only difference is you don't have a sketch board right in front of you. Favorite tricks, always check what's under the stage before you drink it. So, favorite tricks. So, I have a few. So, my first favorite trick, I think, is, sorry? Explosions, yes. No, my first favorite trick is whenever you think something is too big, it's too small. Any UI element in your game, if you think it's big, nobody's seeing it. Any effect that is in your game that is obnoxious and big and way too exaggerated, it's too small. People are really good at missing stuff. It's like a special talent. Like, you make a game, you're like, there's this giant blinking arrow pointing at this thing, and like your first playtest is like, I don't know where to go. Like, what about the two fucking big arrows over there? Like, oh, right. I didn't see those. Right? Low ammo. Have you ever seen a low ammo prompt in a game? Nobody has ever seen the low ammo prompt in a game. Go back, play your favorite game. I will promise you, somewhere on the screen it says low ammo. You have never noticed it. Why? Because nobody looks at the fucking screen. We play our game, we get stuck. We look at the input, we process the parts we care about. We don't care about low ammo. If ammo is out, it will reload. So what? So, whatever you think is exaggerated is not exaggerated enough. Exaggerate more. Now, the other trick I learned is to ask your team members what they are worried about, and then force them to give an answer. So, Paul, our artist, what are you worried about? And he goes, I'm not really worried about it. Like, everything seems to be well. I'm like, no, so is there anything, like, in the future maybe? He's like, well, I might be moving to Canada. Like, that's an issue. You're moving. That's going to take like at least 2 months. He's like, yeah, but it's in a year. I'm like, well, thank God you told me. I can put it in the calendar now that in those 2 months we don't need work from you. Turned out that it was the 2 months before release. So he actually moved all of his work forward, but we had already planned for it. So force your team to answer the question, what are you worried about? Just always have them do that. And then my third favorite trick is actually about giving feedback and listening to feedback. If you give feedback, ask first. Ask if people are interested in feedback. Sometimes people just really don't want to deal with your shit. And then you don't give them feedback. And you know what? It's on them. It's not your responsibility to make their game better, right? So you ask if they want feedback. Then if they say yes, give yourself a challenge. Find 2 things you like. Just 2 things. 2 things you like, even if everything else is shit. Right? So if you see like the worst game you have ever seen and they ask for feedback, you go, yeah, it's an interesting game. You know, it's really ugly. It sounds horrible. I have no idea what I'm doing. I think the controls are broken. That tree in the background is really nice. Like, this is exaggerated, right? But if you learn to sandwich your feedback, positive, negative, positive, you will see that people are nicer about it. Now, on the other side, if you're getting feedback, people are assholes. They would just come up to you and go, this game is shit. You're like, well, that's great feedback, thanks, right? You just say thank you. Whatever, this game is shit, cool, you didn't like it, that's fine. But if somebody comes to you and says, somebody comes to you and gives you feedback, here's the things you do. Rule number 1 is whatever they feel is right. So if they say this feels too hard, they are right because it feels too hard to them. That doesn't mean it is too hard, it just means it feels too hard to them, right? So you keep that in mind. Rule number 2, any problems people give you are true. Any solutions they give you are false. This boss is too hard, I need more powerful weapons. What you should remember is this boss is too hard. These are too powerful weapons? Fuck that. You're the game designer, not them. If they were better at your job, you should have them do it. Just hire them. Whatever people tell you the problem is what you should be paying attention to. So this boss is too hard might mean it has too much health, it might mean the weapons are not strong enough, it might mean it's in the wrong place in the level, it might mean the level design is a bit too hard, it might mean one of the attacks is unfair or not communicated. That's your job as a designer to figure out. Don't listen to solutions people offer you. That's not their job, they don't know how the game works. You know how the game works, listen to the problems. Oh God.
Rami,
So-
I hate to interrupt, but we can make a choice. So you can finish with the slides because I believe that they cover questions and answers.
Sure.
Or we can just go directly to the question and answers.
Right,
What
how
do you
many
think?
minutes do we have?
10 extra minutes.
We have 10 extra minutes. Okay,
Yeah.
give me 30 seconds. So, and then we'll go to Q&A. So community. The basic version is about community is very simple. Here's how it works. You need them more than they need you. It always feels the other way around, right? Like they are your fans. But the thing is, you need your fans more than they will ever need you. You go away, they go play another game. They go away, you're fucked. It's over. So here's how you deal with community. The good people in the community, reward them. The bad people of the community, get rid of them. You don't owe anybody anything just because they bought your game. Somebody bought your game, you know what they get? The game. You know what they don't get? The right to be an ass. Somebody's an ass and you don't like it, ban them from the forums. Block them on Twitter. Just remove them. And you know why? Because no single person is ever worth more than your community. Because one single person can mess up everything. So if you see hate in your community, if somebody is talking shit about other members of your community, if somebody is being extremely negative in your community, they don't technically have a right to be there. And we have found with Nuclear Throne, honestly, that the community has been amazing. They've been super positive, they've been super helpful, they've spread the word about the game. And the people that wanted to be assholes, they're just gonna go be assholes somewhere else. You don't owe them. Reward the people that do well, get rid of the people that do bad. This is exactly like anything else in life. Nobody is gonna stay friends with somebody that is being a jerk to them all the time, right? Your community should be no different. They should be good people, people that care, people that are interested. Sometimes they're critical. Sometimes they say stuff that hurts. Sometimes they point out mistakes you've made. That's good community. Good community will be honest with you, and they will tell you you fucked up if you did. Bad community will just be negative for negativity. So if you keep those two apart and manage your community that way, things will go pretty well. I hope that went well. We have 7 minutes for Q&A. So let's do Q&A. Wow, I just
Rami.
improvised the talk.
Yeah, thanks for that. It was quite fun.
Thanks.
I have a question about what bug tracker are you using?
So we use the one that is part of the Atlassian Jira suite,
Okay.
and it's actually really good. It's helpful. It has a public function, which is great. So we actually have a forum on the website that allows community members to submit their bugs, and that has actually been the most useful thing. except for when people post bugs that are like, when is the game going on sale? Which is a very odd bug. We couldn't reproduce that one, but yeah, it's a good bug trigger.
Thank you. I want to ask, how long does it take for you to make a game, and how long it should not be made in the development? Is there any, when you make a 2-year game and you understand that it's not making any sense to make it, to put in time in it anymore?
So most of our games take between 6 months and 2 years to make. The way we make our games is we are very careful about which projects we take on. If we commit to a game, we have to finish it, effectively. So the way it works is JW makes prototypes, I check out the prototypes. We still don't like each other, by the way. Like, me and JW will never like each other. So what happens is he shows me the prototypes, I laugh at how bad they are, and then I pick the ones that are interesting, that I find interesting, and if there's none, he just prototypes more, and if there are, then we will together decide that we work on a project. If we do, we work on the project for 2 weeks. If after 2 weeks we're still interested and motivated to work on it, like intrinsically motivated, like we want to work on this game, we decide whether we want to make it a full project or not. Sometimes we extend those 2 weeks with 2 extra weeks. And then if we go through those and we decide to commit to a commercial project, we actually release the name of the game and the logo of the game, and then we're stuck. Like, then we have to make that game. So if it's a game that we're not really interested in, 6 months is probably too much. Because we don't like working on something we're not interested in for that long. The way we decide whether a game is done, that's actually my job, and the basic version is if adding something to the game has less, okay, this is silly, but the way we calculate it is in like Metacritic. And it's not a real number, it doesn't actually do anything, but we say like, oh, adding this will take 2 weeks and it will add like 0.1 Metacritic. And it's bullshit, right? But it's like this number that we use to like say like, oh, this is going to be like a big improvement to the game, or this is going to be like a tiny improvement to the game. So if somebody goes up and it's like, well, this will take like 6 weeks, and you ask like how much Metacritic it is going to be, and they're like, well, 0.1, like that's too much time for that. And then at some point, if there's just nothing to add anymore, where you go like, oh yeah, that's worth it, then you drop it. The main thing is you have to be very mature about that. Like, you have to be very aware of like, is this investment worth it? Because at some point, you're just wasting money. So take the salary of the people that work for you, or the salary they should be earning, multiply that by the amount of time that you're going to be spending on that, and then look at that number. If that number makes you go like, damn, then don't do it. If that number makes you go like, that's probably worth this addition, then do it. That's basically how we do it. It's all very cynical money stuff, but it's the right way of doing it. Like, at some point, a game has to be done. And if you leave it to the people creating the games, most of us like adding shit. It's kind of a problem. So you can keep adding forever. Nuclear Throne was supposed to be an 8-month project. We took 2.5 years.
The rap song in Nuclear Throne, how did that happen?
Sorry?
The rap song in Nuclear Throne.
The rap song?
Yeah.
So remember that Venetian-based hip-hop shooter that we did, Gun Gods?
Yes.
We did that game because we got introduced to a rapper. His name is Dose1. He's from the US, Adam Drucker. He ended up doing Enter the Gungeon recently, which is an amazing game. He worked with us on Gun Gods. It was the first game he did. And in that game, you come across this character called Young Venus. And then in Nuclear Throne, we have that same character. We like reusing characters from previous games because we like to pretend all our games are in one universe. So when Young Venus came back, we had to bring back Adam because, that's the atmosphere of that character. So that's how the rap song happened.
Thank you.
Also, it's a rap song. Fuck yeah, we want to put that in our game.
Okay, guys, I believe we have time just for one last question. Okay, two.
Yeah, we have time for
let's
two
do
more
it quick.
So the first question is, how many prototypes do you usually do before your lunch? And yeah.
I love that it's like 2 questions because there's 2 people and then you start. But like the first question is.
Yeah.
So what was the question?
The first question was, how many prototypes do you usually do before you start working on the project?
So we just started talking about new projects internally.
Yes.
And JW made 27 prototypes.
Oh my
in
God.
4 months.
Oh my God. And
Yeah.
the second question was the worst and the best thing about GameMaker you can tell?
The best thing is it's really fast for prototyping. The worst thing is it is definitely not made for commercial projects, and they're still working on that. But yeah, 27 prototypes. After Nuclear Throne was done, I actually told JW, me and JW met up like 4 days after Nuclear Throne launched. We looked at each other and we said, I don't want to talk to you for 4 months. And we didn't. He went on a holiday, I went on a trip. Then we saw each other at GDC and just said like, hi. That was it. And in the meanwhile, he was prototyping and I was fixing the game. It was actually really nice not having to talk to that guy.
Rami, thank you for your speech. It's always informative and inspiring.
I had fun.
Well, I'd like to confess, I have an iPhone 6s, and well, I downloaded the ridiculous fishing, and it wouldn't load. I wrote you on your site, and you didn't answer. So I had to download the ninja fishing. Sorry, man.
So wait, you have ridiculous fishing.
Yeah.
And then later you bought ninja fishing.
It wouldn't load. The ridiculous
so
fishing.
So wait, you paid me money and then you downloaded another game.
Because I got so inspired by your speech on last Dev Gam that I wanted to download it badly and I wanted to play it badly, and I still haven't played it.
So we found the bug. We found the bug 4 weeks ago. We've been looking at it for 2 years. What turns out is the way it works is that there was a change in how the timer operates in iPads, and the way we saved an array in the game actually causes the game to crash on the load screen, which is the bug you have, right?
Yeah.
We searched for that one for quite a while. You know how we ended up fixing it?
No.
We hired an extra programmer. We hired a new guy and we said, look at this code. We've been looking at it for 2 years. We've got no fucking clue. Please tell us what is wrong with it. And he looked at it and he went like, oh God. So we hired a guy, we paid him $600, and he found it. So we fixed it. We're going to be submitting the new build in the next 3 weeks. I do admit that...
Hope it pays off.
Yeah, me too. I do admit that I am sorry for how long that took. So
3 months, maybe?
If you want, I will happily give you €3 to refund the game, if that's fair. But thank you for your support. I appreciate that. Thanks so much.